For context, my maternal grandmother is the one who passed away, and my sister and I always called her by the Portuguese word for grandmother, vavó, or vô. I butchered the spelling. My biological mother is Vo's second and youngest kid, with there being a 12-year gap between my aunt and mother. As a result, my cousins from that aunt are way older than me, as I spent a decent part of being a toddler as the flower girl at their weddings. The cousin in the story is my cousin H, 15 years older than me. Given the gap in age, my Vo was super involved with my sister and I, as well as her great-grandkids for my older cousins. I was very close to Vo, and still say even now that she was my very first best friend in this world. As she aged, Vo's health got worse, and by the time I was in high school, she was on oxygen around the clock for her emphysema. When we were kids, she had paperwork drawn up like a will, healthcare proxies and others, just in case something happened, but we couldn't sign it as we were under 18 back then. With the exception of maybe 3 people, most of my mother's family are huge addicts who refuse to get help. Vo didn't trust anyone other than my sister, my cousin Steve, and me, and as soon as we were old enough, Vo asked us to take her to have these documents updated. Vo named my sister and I in the updated docs, and I had a professor at school review the docs with me as well, so I understood them thoroughly. Steve was newly married, expecting his first child, and renovating his new home, so Vo didn't want to stress him out more. Whenever a decision needed to be made on Vo's behalf, my sister and I would include him, and as someone older than us, we looked up to him. His sister, H, was a full-fledged addict on top of being entitled and snobby. Her husband, now ex, owns his own masonry business, and they did well for themselves. But when I was in junior high, she somehow managed to steal $10K out of Vo's savings and opened a credit card in Vo's name. I was pissed. My Vo was devastated that H did this to her. Fast forward a bit, and during my early 20s, I get news that my Vo has a bad case of pneumonia and is hospitalized. During my school winter vacation, I spend every day with her, and the doc says to me she'll be discharged the next day since she's better. I return to school at the end of break, and I get a call 2 days later from my sister. The long and short of it is that Vo took a bad turn after discharge, and it doesn't look like she'll survive. I raced back home. What was a 2-hour drive took maybe 90 minutes. I make it in time to say goodbye. I came in, held her hand, and gave her one last kiss on her cheek. She died about 10 minutes later. As everyone was in the elevator leaving, H asks Steve, sister, and I why we were the only 3 people the care team would speak to privately. We shrug it off, in no mood to fuss. Sis and I get to work arranging the details of the funeral, wake. Vo's church has a beautiful memorial for her, and after we get back to my sister's house, H starts her crap again. She had been snooping and learned that Sis and I were named as the proxy, power of attorney, with me as the primary. I confirmed that to H, and she also read something about the will and that I was the executor. She starts her damned and entitled Karen act when I confirm the will is correct. H: why you of all people? You're just a kid. OP: I'm 22, not 5. She picked me because she doesn't trust most of the family. H: whatever. Just give me what Vo left me and I'll go. And I'll take whatever she left for my kids, too. H has 2 kids named Courtney and Cody. My sister, Courtney, and I were left a necklace and a ring each, and a little money. Cody got roughly 9 to 10K, as he didn't get much in the way of items passed down. Vo didn't think he'd want woman's jewelry. However, she also gave me her old engagement ring to hold until one of you kids get engaged and want it. J: what do you want about? H: give me my money and my kids' stuff. J: I can't. H: why? J: well, if you read the whole will, you'd know that you didn't get anything. H: why? J: because Vo said you already got yours when you stole her identity and retirement savings. H: whatever, give me the stuff for my kids then. J: I can't. Vo had me promise not to give anything to anyone other than the people listed. I can't give you my sister's inheritance for you to give to her. It goes direct to her. Guys, H is near 40 and throws a tantrum in the driveway and calls the ducking cops on me. Tried saying I stole everything and assaulted her. It backfired on her. Cops ran all our info, and H had bench warrants in 3 states. I just can't. She also wanted me to pay her bail. I told her to pound sand. Edit: this all took place a few years ago, and I ran into my old teacher who knew the situation as she was friends with my Vo since they were little girls. I was reminded of this situation when Vo's friend and I had coffee together after running into each other. I'm surprised Vo didn't press charges against H for stealing her identity and money. If I were you, I'd put H's kids' money in a trust, where they can access it when they are the appropriate age, so their mother can't touch it. I'm sorry for your loss. Your grandmother is in a good place. 100% always put it in the will that the money goes into a trust for the person. A trust cannot be taken by the government, make you spend it all on medical bills. If you need Medicaid. Plus, you won't have to pay gift taxes, and maybe not be considered as taxable income if worded correctly. Example, for college, wedding, future things. I've seen people lose Medicaid after they inherit as little as $2,000, and they had to reapply, plus spend that $2,000 on medical bills. It cost the family $7,500 to get a lawyer to get it back. So always say the money goes into a trust, and you can limit how much comes out and what it is used for. So, my cousin and his wife live in a different state from family, and they asked if I wanted to help them plan an online baby shower for their 6th child. I didn't think much of it, and said sure, but also let them know money is tight with family, so don't expect much. They said they didn't have to go to the shower, but should still send gifts. I should have told them to F off at this point, but I didn't think too much of it. I set up an online event explaining the situation, add their gift registry, and set a date for when people should send gifts, so we could all go on a live stream and see the parents open presents. A few people responded, and apparently, it wasn't enough for them. Pandemic hits, so people are starting to really struggle. I re-emphasized this to them. Money is tight, especially during these times. I wouldn't expect much. I then checked their registry. All the items on there are ridiculously priced, and things I know they wouldn't buy for themselves due to the price. At this point, I'm already pissed that they feel entitled to people's money for their stupid mistake. They had their 5th child the year before, and I thought they should already have the majority of these items. I get some messages from my cousin that people are just not being enthusiastic enough about the online, so they want to drive 5+ hours to a family member's house, when the mom is full term from a heavily affected pandemic area, to throw a real shower. I told him he's stupid, considering that family member has older relatives living with them, and they're going to get everyone sick. Plus, our family is financially struggling due to pandemic. They're not thinking about your stupid shower. He demands a list of people struggling. I can't even believe the audacity. I cancel the event, return his gifts, and stop speaking to him. I thought that was the end of that. But then I get an invitation in the mail to their stupid baby shower and how they're so excited to receive gifts. And their top 10 needs are listed. The whole thing was so tacky. I couldn't believe them. Then it's her birthday. She keeps posting her registry on Facebook trying to get more presents. They make another event which I declined just to prove a point, and to this day they are still bombarding people on Facebook for presents. They're super passive too, and will post a thank you to the idiots who actually sent them something, and tell them only the good ones send stuff. I wish I was making this up. My cousin and his wife are so entitled it's disgusting. I returned everything I bought them on principle, but kept their baby wipes to wipe my dog's butt with. She deserves it more than them. Can I also just say that it's pretty entitled to expect a baby shower for their 5th, actually 6th, I read wrong, baby. Usually, people only have a baby shower for their firstborn, and maybe a small gathering for their 2nd, with maybe a few gifts. I've never heard of someone having a shower for every single time they get knocked up, let alone opening up a registry. Bunch of entitled ankles. After the 5th baby a year ago, they should already have everything for the 6th baby this year. Entitled buttheads are pulling a gift grab. My husband cheated on me 10 years ago. We were going through a rough patch and he ended up having an affair which lasted 2 months before I found out. We had 2 children at that time. I made a very difficult decision to work things out for their sake. Since then, he's been completely transparent, full access to phone, emails, etc. Always home on time. We've been working on our relationship, have regular date nights, counseling, working on getting couples time together, and last year he even made a journal which he wrote in every day for a year, listing daily all the things that he appreciates about me. He gave it to me for Valentine's Day and included every ticket stub and a coaster or receipt header of our date nights. Needless to say, I was incredibly touched, and a part of me felt like we'd really moved on at last from everything. Last weekend we had a family function, and my sister-in-law and husband were in the kitchen drying the dishes when my sister-in-law, husband's sister, and him got into an argument about my cousin, my sister-in-law thinks is in an aggressive relationship. I think my husband only got part of the context, because he was trying to explain how my sister-in-law may have been misconstruing what my cousin's significant other might have said. From what I heard, my cousin's significant other's statement was fairly innocuous. He blamed her for taking the car when he claimed to have needed it, but taken in consideration of other stuff he's done, like blaming my cousin for things he's forgotten to do, or tell her he's never wrong, and making her feel like she's forgotten or remembering wrong, or she's the one who's overreacting or incompetent. My sister-in-law was trying to explain that he has a pattern of this behavior, but my husband was saying that these little things happen, and you can't let little things like that ruin a relationship. Then, my sister-in-law fired back with something like, "You think sleeping around isn't grounds to ruin a relationship, so what the hell would you know?" We all heard that because their voices were getting raised. My husband came out of the kitchen really red-faced and just told everyone he was going for a walk. He came back about a half an hour later. I was texting and calling him, but he just asked me to let him clear his head, and he'd be back soon, and to have the kids ready to leave. I gathered them up and he waited outside. He didn't say goodbye to his parents or sister, but he had brought me flowers along the way somewhere. When we got home, he was quiet, but we did talk about it last night. I told him more background about why his cousin was in an aggressive relationship that my sister-in-law had told me, and that her and her mother-in-law were really worried about my cousin because it didn't seem like she was eating because he'd made comments about her weight, and that she was no longer perky and upbeat like she used to be. The cousin is also suspicious that her boyfriend might also be cheating on him, but has no proof. He kept saying he didn't know that. If he'd known that, then he never would have just dismissed it as minor relationship problems. I told him that sister-in-law must have been frustrated because apart from her and mother-in-law, no one else seems to care because the cousin is 37 and her family is desperate for her to get married, and sister-in-law was scared she was settling for this guy because of the pressure. He then asked me if I was settling for him because of pressure of my family and his family to work things out. I was honest, and it had been brought up in therapy as well that part of the reason I stayed was because of that influence. But I also told him I loved him, and I love the man he is today. Now, Christmas is coming up, and he's expressing reluctance to go to the family dinner because he's embarrassed, and suddenly he's asked me a few times since if I was just settling also. He also hasn't spoken to his sister since. She's angry at him for dismissing the cousin's significant other's aggression. In her mind, she's made it clear that there was aggressive behavior, and he was just dismissing it, and she was shocked he would be like that. I should note that when I first found out my husband was cheating on me, my sister-in-law never made any excuses for him, and would never let my in-laws shift blame or make excuses for him. She thoroughly berated him and told him that if he wanted to deprive his children of their grandparents, aunts, and cousins because he couldn't man up and fix the damage he'd caused, then he should be the one kicked out of the family. In the early stages, she's also been pushing him hard to come up with date nights, offering to babysit so we can go out, and also have our kids sleep over together, even telling him to do chores and pick up more around the house, and told him off when he initially didn't want to go to therapy, and calling him a coward, and asking him if he'd put up with her husband treating her the way he was treating me. She was always nothing but supportive of me, and I've always felt like I could confide in her, and that she trusted me too. One of the reasons why I had the strength to keep going was because she told me that I was brave for taking the less certain and harder road, and that she would have been divorced from any husband that did that, pronto. They used to get into major arguments, but eventually he'd see that she had a point, and they've always gotten past it, and she eased up once he started making a genuine effort in the relationships. That said, she hasn't mentioned the cheating in well over 8 years. I want them to make up and have things be okay again, not just for his sake, but for mine and our children too. They are very close with their aunt and my niece's nephews. I get that it stings for my husband to have that brought up again when we've moved past it, and I feel that comment from my sister-in-law was unwarranted, but I don't want to seem ungrateful for her support all these years. What can I do or say to both sides before Christmas? People will always remember what he did. This is one of the consequences of his infidelity. If he wants to ask his sister to please not use it against him in the heat of the moment, then he can. Same as any other sensitive spot. But he must be aware that even if his sister agrees, others may use it. It's going to be something he'll have to get used to happening. All he can do is manage these situations as they come.